He scored one of the most important goals of England's World Cup campaign so far. He drove into the box, held off a defender, and fired low into the far corner to put England 3-2 up against Croatia. The commentators went wild. The fans went wild. And then somebody checked his market value and found out it had dropped from 180 million euros to 130 million euros in less than 2 years. Jude Bellingham scored a brilliant goal, and the market still does not believe in him. That is the story nobody is telling properly. And today on Robert's Football Talk, we are going to tell it. Welcome back to Robert's Football Talk. I am your host, and if you are new here, subscribe right now, because today we are going deep on Jude Bellingham. The Croatia goal, the market value collapse, the Real Madrid situation, and the question that every England fan and every football analyst is asking right now: is Bellingham back? Or was that one goal against Croatia just one moment in a story that has quietly been going in the wrong direction for almost 2 years? Let us start with what happened on Wednesday night in Dallas, because that game against Croatia deserves to be set up properly. England went into that World Cup opener with questions hanging over them. Thomas Tuchel's side had looked nervous and disjointed in the first half. Croatia leveled twice. Harry Kane scored twice, only to be cancelled out both times. It was exactly the kind of chaotic first half that England fans have had nightmares about since the Southgate era. And then the second half started. And within 2 minutes, Jude Bellingham answered every single question with one move. Elliot Anderson played a clever pass into the channel. Bellingham ran onto it, drove forward, held off Mario Pasalic with his body, and fired low across Croatia goalkeeper Dominik Livakovic into the bottom corner. England 3-2. And suddenly, Tuchel's halftime team talk looked like genius. The commentators called it brilliant. Sky Sports said the Bellingham argument was over. ESPN said when Bellingham conjures up actions like this, all is forgiven. The stats backed it up. He finished with a 7.7 SofaScore rating. 3 shots, 2 on target, all from inside the box. 5 of 7 duels won on the ground. 3 tackles won from 3 attempts. He worked for 80 minutes before being substituted. England won 4-2. Bellingham was the difference. And yet, Transfermarkt's latest update has his market value at 130 million euros, the same platform that had him at 180 million euros just over a year ago, a drop of 50 million euros. From the player who was being described as the best in the world when he left Borussia Dortmund, to a player whose value has fallen for the second consecutive update. How does that happen? How does a player score a brilliant goal in a World Cup, finish with a 7.7 rating, and still be considered less valuable than he was 2 seasons ago? Before we get into that, I want to ask you something. Do you think Bellingham's Croatia goal is the turning point? Is the old Jude Bellingham back? Drop your answer in the comments right now. I genuinely want to know what the Robert's Football Talk community thinks, because this debate is dividing opinion everywhere. Let us go back to the beginning, because to understand the fall, you have to understand the peak. Jude Bellingham arrived at Real Madrid in the summer of 2023. He was 19 years old. He had just come off one of the most impressive seasons any teenager had ever produced in the Champions League with Borussia Dortmund. Real Madrid paid 103 million euros for him. At the time, it felt like the right price for a generational talent. And in his first season at the Bernabeu, Bellingham was not just good, he was extraordinary. He finished his debut La Liga campaign with 19 goals from midfield. He scored in El Clasico, he scored in the Champions League, he scored that incredible bicycle kick goal against Atletico Madrid that the Bernabeu is still talking about. He won the Champions League, he won La Liga, he was voted the best young player at the Euros with England. His market value hit 180 million euros. He was being discussed in the same breath as Mbappé and Vinicius as the best player in the world. That was Bellingham at his peak. And then Kylian Mbappé arrived at Real Madrid. Subscribe to Robert's Football Talk right now, because this is where the story gets really interesting. Because here is the thing about Mbappé's arrival that nobody fully appreciated at the time. Mbappé did not just change Real Madrid's attack, he changed Bellingham's role. Before Mbappé, Bellingham was operating as essentially an advanced number 10 with freedom to arrive in the box, score goals, and dominate games with his personality and directness. He was the focal point of the attack. Everything went through him. After Mbappé arrived, that space was no longer Bellingham's alone. Suddenly Real Madrid had Mbappé, Vinicius, Bellingham, and Rodrigo all competing for positions and influence in attack. The tactical system shifted. Bellingham was asked to do different things, to play deeper at times, to be more of a traditional midfielder, and the goals that came so naturally in his first season dried up. In the 2025-26 La Liga season, Bellingham scored only 6 goals, 6, in a full league campaign. For a player whose market value was built on the expectation that he would consistently deliver 15 to 20 goals from midfield every season, 6 goals is not what 180 million euros looks like. 6 goals is not what the next great midfielder of his generation was supposed to look like 2 years into his Real Madrid career. Transfermarkt's La Liga market value coordinator described it as a significant drop in status at the club. After a near-perfect debut season, which included a Champions League triumph and a string of decisive goals, Bellingham has struggled to maintain those heights. Injuries, a shifting role following Mbappé's arrival, and growing competition from Federico Valverde and Arda Güler have all contributed to what the experts are calling a meaningful decline. And there is something else happening here that is deeper than just statistics. Bellingham arrived at Real Madrid as the main character, the player around whom the entire attacking structure would be built, the star. And within one summer, Mbappé arrived and became the main character instead. Not because Bellingham became a bad player, but because Mbappé is Mbappé. When you share a dressing room with someone who the entire world considers the best player on the planet, your role inevitably changes. Ask yourself this. When you think of Real Madrid's attack in the 2025-26 season, who do you think of first? Mbappé. Every time. Bellingham became a supporting character in a story where he was supposed to be the lead. And the market noticed. Now let me ask you something before we get to the World Cup bounce-back question. Do you think Mbappé's arrival at Real Madrid is the main reason Bellingham's value dropped? Or was it more about Bellingham's own performances not living up to the price tag? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your take on this. Because here is the complication. It is not just the goals, it is not just the statistics, it is the expectation versus reality problem that haunts expensive signings at the biggest clubs. When Real Madrid paid 103 million euros for Bellingham, they were not paying for what he was. They were paying for what he was going to become. The expectation built into that fee was that Bellingham would be worth 150, 180, 200 million euros by the time he was 22 or 23. That the trajectory would only go upward. That his first season was a preview of decades of dominance. Instead, his second season saw fewer goals, an altered role, and a Real Madrid team that finished trophyless. And the market recalibrated. Harshly, immediately, without sentiment. Real Madrid had the entire squad devalued by a staggering 176 million euros following 2 consecutive trophyless seasons. That is not one player's problem. That is a collective failure with individual consequences. And the players with the highest market values suffer the biggest numerical drops because the percentage falls hit harder when you start from 180 million. Bellingham is now valued at 130 million euros on Transfermarkt as of June 2026. He is still ranked number 1 in the world for attacking midfielders. Still ranked number 1 among all English players. Still ranked 3rd in value in the entire Real Madrid squad. So it is important to be clear. This is not a player who has become bad. This is a player whose value has been recalibrated from an astronomical peak to a level that still puts him among the most expensive players on the planet. But the direction of travel matters, and for 2 years it has been going the wrong way. And that is exactly why the Croatia goal matters so much. Subscribe to Robert's Football Talk and share this video because we are about to get into the World Cup bounce-back question and what it means for Bellingham's entire future. Because here is the reality. The World Cup is the perfect stage for a player to rewrite a narrative. 6 weeks, millions watching, high-stakes knockout football. The kind of tournament that turns complicated stories into simple ones very quickly. Goal in the World Cup. Nation loves you. Market responds. Bellingham against Croatia showed flashes of exactly what made him the most expensive teenager in Real Madrid's history. The drive into the box. The composure under pressure. The finish. The willingness to take the moment on his own terms. Sky Sports analyst said the Bellingham argument is over. Espen said, all is forgiven when he produces moments like that. For one night in Dallas, the 7.7 rating and the 3-2 goal made all the noise about his market value feel irrelevant. But here is the question that nobody wants to answer honestly. Is one goal against Croatia in the group stage of the World Cup enough to reverse 2 years of market value decline? Is one brilliant moment in an 80-minute shift in a Group L opener enough to prove that the Bellingham of 2023-24 is back permanently? The honest answer is no, not yet. One goal is a statement, but statements need to be followed by sustained performances. England still have Ghana, then the knockout rounds if they progress. Bellingham needs to be the difference, not just once, but consistently across the tournament. The Croatia goal was the beginning of the answer. It is not the full answer, and there is another layer to this story that involves Bellingham's future at Real Madrid and whether Mourinho's arrival changes anything for him. Mourinho has taken over at the Bernabeu. A new era, a new system. Players who fit are staying. Players who do not are being shown the door. Where does Bellingham fit in a Mourinho system? Mourinho historically loves players who can work in both directions. Press hard, win the ball, and then drive forward with purpose. That profile fits Bellingham. But Mourinho also demands a very specific midfield structure built on defensive discipline and collective organization. Bellingham's best performances have come when he has been given freedom to arrive in the box and express himself. How much of that freedom Mourinho is willing to give him will define whether the next chapter at Real Madrid looks more like his first season or his second. Bernardo Silva has arrived. The midfield competition is now intense. Valverde, Tchouaméni, Silva, Bellingham. 4 world-class midfielders competing for 3 positions. In that environment, Bellingham cannot rely on his name or his price tag. He has to perform every week. The World Cup is his first real audition, not for Real Madrid, not for his market value, for himself, for the version of Jude Bellingham he wants to be when this tournament is over. The Croatia goal said something. It said the quality is still there. It said the drive, the composure, the ability to change a game are all present. It said that the 2 quiet La Liga seasons were not the end of his story. But one goal does not rebuild a market value. 6 weeks of tournament football might. England face Ghana next. Then, if they progress, the knockout rounds. Bellingham in a World Cup knockout game is the version of this player that the football world has not seen yet. We have seen him score decisive goals in La Liga, we have seen him win the Champions League, but we have not seen him be the difference in a World Cup knockout match with everything on the line. That is what comes next. And here is the thing. If Bellingham delivers in those moments, if he is consistently brilliant across England's entire World Cup campaign, if he scores and creates and dominates in the way his first Real Madrid season suggested he would one day do at a tournament, the market value conversation becomes irrelevant very quickly. Numbers on a spreadsheet cannot compete with iconic tournament moments. Ronaldo's Portugal goals, Messi's Argentina redemption, Zidane's France dominance. These are the moments that define what a player means to the sport. Bellingham could have his version of that in the next 3 weeks. Or he could score against Croatia and then disappear again. And the market value keeps falling, and the questions keep coming. And the gap between what he was supposed to be and what he actually became grows wider. That is the story of Jude Bellingham right now. A brilliant goal in a 4-2 win, a market value that has fallen 50 million euros, a new manager at his club, changing everything around him, an England squad that needs him to be their leader, not just for one second half, but for an entire tournament. The fall has been documented. The bounce back started on Wednesday night in Dallas. Whether it continues is the defining question of the next 3 weeks. That is the full breakdown. Bellingham scored against Croatia. His market value has still fallen dramatically, and the World Cup is his chance to decide which version of himself is the real one. What is your prediction? Does Bellingham have the tournament that rewrites his story, or does the form disappear again after one brilliant night? Drop everything in the comments right now. I read every single one. This has been Robert's Football Talk. Hit that like button, share this video with every football fan you know, and subscribe if you are not already part of this channel. New videos every single week, and the World Cup is giving us new stories every day. I will see you in the next one.